stop reading, stop playing the piano, put on your socks, and everybody get in the car. 5 minutes later, nobody was in the car. On my way to help my youngest daughter with the socks, I noticed my oldest daughter was still on the porch reading. Now I'm starting to lose it. Her response, I didn't hear you. But before I could say a word, I heard the piano start playing again. And that's the story of how I lost my mind. The end. I just wanted my daughters to take a little ownership for getting out the door on time. But then I remembered something I teach management teams. You can't inspire accountability in others until you model it yourself. That's when I realized I wasn't taking any accountability for this problem. I was blaming it totally on my daughters. So I tried a different approach and looked in the mirror. What was I doing or not doing that made me contribute to this problem? Then it hit me. I knew when they needed to be done breakfast, dressed, groomed, and ready to leave. But they did. I also knew what time it was, but there were no clocks in their bathrooms, which I discovered is like a different dimension for my girls where time ceases to exist. Solution. I put big clocks everywhere and posted the schedule in a common area. And you know what? It actually worked. Now, we're not perfect at getting out the door on time, but it's much better than it was. I had fallen into the same trap that many people in leadership positions fall into, which is blaming other people for a problem without considering my part of it. While working with leadership teams, I discovered 3 powerful habits that elevate the performance of others. I call it the 3 habits of personal accountability. Habit 1, don't blame.
Your resume gets you in the room. Your sentences get you the job.
I've been pregnant for 2 weeks. Same. Good luck. You too.
If you want better conversations where people actually listen to you, where you stop rambling, you sound sharp, fast, decisive, then today's episode is for you. Because I realized something. Communication isn't a soft skill, it's a science. And scientists can now tell you what makes someone magnetic and what makes someone instantly forgettable. So I'm going to give you a bunch of research-backed, neuroscience-backed communication tools that I realized almost all of the top 1% use, but nobody else talks about. This is how you change the way you speak in minutes, not years. Mindset shift number 1. People mirror your micro behaviors in about 200 milliseconds. Think like less than the blink of an eye. This is something called the neural echo effect, and it's pretty wild. So neuroscientists at the University of Parma discovered that your brain has mirror neurons that fire within 200 milliseconds of watching someone else move or emote, which basically means people don't respond to what you say, they respond to the emotional signal you send before the words even happen. So if you speak in tension, their nervous system tenses. If you speak more certainty, their nervous system calms. If you are scattered, they kind of mirror that scatter. If you speak grounded, they become more grounded. And this is the real reason that top speakers, the people that you look up to, or the CEOs who look up to in the world, they look very calm when they speak, because they're actually trying to regulate the nervous system without anyone noticing. You know, I remember when I walked into a room, a bunch of private equity guys. You could imagine the mahogany table, a bunch of guys in suits sitting around it. I'm the youngest person by far. I'm the only female. I know it's a stereotype, but it's what happened. At that point, we're coming in to talk about my company, and there was no chair for me. Nobody stood up. Nobody asked to pull up a chair. And they sort of all arguing on top of each other, talking about things, rating. And there's many ways I could approach this conversation. But I walked in, and I pulled up a chair, and I just sat down quietly, and I waited. I didn't try to speak over them. I didn't try to push through them. I just sat there like I had all the time in the world for them to figure out their small things. Because here's why. I made a promise to myself that I do not make myself small for small men. And I don't think you should do so either. You know, I've walked into PE meetings where everyone's talking over each other like caffeinated squirrels. I don't play that game. I sit, quiet. Within like 30 to 90 seconds, So the entire energy shifts faster than takes. Because people deliver these languages faster than average across muscle words. They never listen to me. If I started typing it, if I started shouting, if I try to get their attention, instead quietly left the room to you. Then there's something that's fascinating about the brain and the way you communicate, and that is that the brain is addicted to novelty, not logic. So they call this the orienting response. So if you want to instantly grab somebody's attention, these give them something unexpected, right? So there's a Russian neuroscientist that discovered this reflex. That anytime a brain encounters novelty, it diverts a lot of processing power to it. And so your brain is actually wired to prioritize surprise, curiosity, pattern breaks, overlap information. That's how we get you on TikTok. Crazy clickbait, so videos that happen, right? So the way you start a conversation matters more than the conversation itself. It's crazy. If you lead with something that disrupts the brain, that is a surprising fact, bold statement, strange question, the brain literally has to pay attention, and then it has to stick there for a second because it's actually manually processing it, sort of like a car starting up a motor slowly. So I want you to ask yourself, how many times do you worry about all the things that you're going to say to somebody, but not just what the first sentence is? 3, I think people judge your intelligence by clarity, not complexity. This took me a long time to realize. It's called the simplicity anchor. So a study from the University of Munich found something really fascinating. When speakers use simple language, listeners will rate them as smart, more competent, or trustworthy. But when speakers use overly technical language, listeners assume they're hiding something insecure. Hard as they look. And I've seen this firsthand. If you're going to an investment meeting, one of the first things you want to do is you want the other person to think that you're smart and asking for money from them. But immediately listen to it next time you get your spidey senses up on somebody because they start using words like cogent and I find this to be divisive instead of like, that makes sense. And I'm not sure everybody would agree with that. So if you want people to think you're smart, the crazy part, you gotta stop trying to sound smart. Simplicity actually shows a new IQ signal, shows a higher IQ signal. The other part about this is true, is that questions actually increase dopamine. So they call this the curiosity loop. Carnegie Mellon scientists discovered that when you ask someone a question, especially an open-ended one, their brain releases dopamine, and that's like the happiness drug. Dopamine makes people more alert, more engaged, and more curious. This is why questions pull people into conversations, not away from them. How many times have you been in a conversation with somebody and they're just talking about themselves and you want to die until you get a word in or potentially, I don't know, respond to something? That's why one of the most famous books of all time, which is How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie, is the entire book. You can skip it. The book goes like this. Shut up, listen more. People care more about what you know about them than what they know about you. So try it the next time with something like, hey, can I ask you something I've never asked before? You want to hear something strange? Kind of test an idea on you. It's like, ooh, it's me. That's so special. This is just for you and I. Something unique. You know, I want to tell someone like,
Adesso bisogna si comprare.
I can just tell you, super tight. He didn't want to sell his business. I actually, there's so many physical reactions people have. He has these little pies. It actually happens a lot of men, I noticed. When they're nervous, they'll break out into red splotches on their neck. And I could just tell he was in a heightened state. We didn't really want to talk about his business financials. He was kind of scared that they were too messed up in order for me to want to buy this business. And so he was getting heightened and heightened and heightened. And even though I was trying to down-regulate, I couldn't break him out. But I said instead, I just kind of leaned in quietly and was like, hey, I want to make this sales feel like a relief instead of a mess. And I'm quietly giving it to him. I'm leaning in, showing intent. I'm very focused on him, and his entire body changed. Because questions chemically shift conversations, especially in era the last video that we did about communication and how to speak like a CEO. Because your voice literally changes other people's heart rates. It's called vocal entrainment. This one also defined. University College London found that humans subconsciously sync their heartbeats to the rhythm of the speaker's voice. Vocal entrainment. So if you speak rushed, breathless, stressed, heart rate is going to increase. They're going to feel stressed. If you speak steady, decisive, rhythmic, their heart rate calms. They feel safer. So your voice is not just communication. It's like a remote control for other people's physiology, other people's biology and makeup and how we feel in an instance. This is probably why, I don't know if you guys have ever been to a yoga class, when his yoga class is like a super fast, high-pitched voice, awful, could be the best speaker in the world. So they have to speak, if you ever notice, they speak because it's a yoga tongue, like, and downward dog, and then we're going to move into upward dog, and then we're going to bicep. We're trying to rhythmically control your breathing. And this rhythmic language sounds more true to people.
That's not laziness, that's a specific activation pattern. Problem is that nobody ever gave you a system that was actually designed the way your brain operates. Something that works with your wiring, not against it. Something built around your specific pattern, not someone else's. Number three, this is the pattern down years ago. Learning has a dream that match your exact brain pattern. Specific way your nervous system gets everything knowing what to do and actually doing it. It doesn't give you a to-do list, it shows you how your brain works the way it does. And it goes
The process influencing effect is actually where a person's study found that statements that rhyme with all of them are judged as more truthful. And what does this mean? It means if the writing process breaks quickly, it assumes it must be correct. See how these lines go on right now. Move slow, move fast. Once you track, goes back. You repeat, which will repair. It's kind of, doesn't it sound like deep wisdom? It's like you repeat, which you don't repair. You're like, yeah, that is true. I've noticed that, right? Like, even before the meaning is processed, it sounds like wisdom. And this rhythmic language, in your language, can be incredibly persuasive. And so, how do you use this in everyday life? Well, sometimes we call it talking in tweets. So, for the founders that we teach in current thinking,